Days after that landmark ruling against Caster Semenya by the Court of Arbitration for Sport, Semenya will return to the field later on this evening. Now she'll compete in the 800-meter race at the Diamond Event season opener in Doha. Now for more on that race and, of course, Caster's imminent future, we're joined live in studio by my colleague, Uhlonim Timkulu. Now, thanks for joining us. Afternoon. Just in terms of these regulations, when do they actually get into effect, or come into effect, I should say?
Okay, so the IAAF's new regulations come into effect next week, Wednesday, on the 8th of May. So any athletes that want to be considered for the World Champs later this year need to, this is the complicated issue, that by the 8th of May they need to have either started reducing their testosterone levels, or they need to have their testosterone levels already at 5 nanomoles per liter. There was supposed to be a 6-month period for which athletes were supposed to start reducing their testosterone levels, but now that's obviously less than 5 now, because the World Champs are less than 5 months away. But the IAAF has said if you start by the 8th of May, we'll make a concession for you and allow you to be part of the World Champs in the 5-month period or 4-month period instead of 6. So Wednesday.
Wednesday, election day, quite frankly.
Yes.
Now, what chances does her appeal actually stand in light of the fact that not many scientists have actually backed these IAAF rules? In fact, a lot of scientists are on Caster's side. Yeah,
so I mean, the SA Medical Association has issued a statement saying that they're shocked at the ruling, they're disappointed at the ruling, they don't understand the basis of that ruling. The World Medical Association has also said the same thing. They've said they've called for their doctors to not help athletes to decrease their testosterone levels. So they've said their physicians shouldn't implement these IAAF regulations because there are ethical issues around how you do this. There are also concerns about the study that the IAAF used, because they used one study to base their findings on. Meanwhile, there's a whole range of other studies that are questioning these regulations or questioning the role of testosterone in performance advantage for women. So those two main, I mean, the World Medical Association is a global body. So if they're questioning it, and there have been others as well. I mean, we've spoken to so many people in the health profession sector, and they've all sort of questioned, a lot of them have questioned how this is even going to play itself out. They don't know what the effects of any hormone therapy will have on her. Again, the ethics of it, and the basis for doing this. So, I mean, we all thought that, we assumed that based on even on those factors, that CAS would side with Caster and ASA on the matter, but they didn't do that in the initial decision. So whether they'll do the same in the appeal, I suppose we'll have to wait for that 30-day period to play itself out and see what happens afterwards.
Now, meanwhile, the IAAF rather has got it wrong before, specifically in the case of that the Indian female hurdler.
Yes, Duty Chand. Yeah.
Just talk us through that,
before.
please.
Yeah. So they had hyperandrogenism regulations before, and these were implemented. Or in 2014, Duty Chand took the IAAF to the Court of Arbitration for Sport because she contested that there isn't enough backing to support what the IAAF had wanted at the time. And then in 2015, the Court of Arbitration for Sport suspended the IAAF's regulations and said that suspended the regulations for 2 years and said that there isn't enough evidence to support what the Federation was saying to fully go on that. So that was suspended. And then in that 2-year suspension period, the IAAF came up with new regulations, which they implemented last year. So, and I think we all thought based on that, and that would happen, but apparently that wasn't a precedent-setting event. Yeah. So, and this is where we are today.
Now, just in terms of those World Championships you mentioned, I think it's in September, back end of September in Doha.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, could Caster Semenya go to those World Championships and compete in events outside of the 400 meters through to the mile, maybe 3,000 and 5,000, of which she's already been training and winning? Yeah.
So I think, sure, with the IAAF, there's so many things happening right now around the 3,000 meters and the 5,000 meters, and whether they'll be in the Diamond League next year or, the restructuring of it. But theoretically, she could run the 5,000 meters at the World Champs if she wanted to. And I mean, as you say, she won at the Senior Champs, at the ASA Senior Champs last weekend, and she was beating seasoned long distance runners, and she did the same at the Provincial Championships in March. And again, she was beating seasoned long-distance runners. So it could happen. I think maybe it would depend. I mean, we don't know what her plan is, but I think it would be great to maybe look at her times for those events and compare it with the global standard to see if it's a worthy cause for her to do. But yeah, she could do that but then we'd have to see what the IAAF response to that is then, because obviously there's a perception that those regulations are specifically targeting Caster. So we then have to see what they do and how they respond to that.
Now, just finally and quickly, do you reckon she'll try and go out with a bang, seeing as those regulations come into effect next week, and maybe try and go for the world record, maybe?
Oh, well, I don't know about that world record, because there's so many question marks about that world record, you know. There's so many records of the 80s, that 800-meter world record, the 400-meter world record, even the 100 and the 200-meter floaters records as well. You know, there's so many questions around whether those records were set legally in terms of doping and that sort of thing. So I don't know. I think what is a bit sad is the fact that Caster's won the diamond race for the past 3 years, in 2016, 17 and 18. She's been the dominant 800-meter runner. And after today, from next week, that's all up in the air now. Because while that 30-day period for the appeal happens, there's still more Diamond League races. On the 18th there's Shanghai, so the season continues and she's not taking part in the season. And I also think I don't know what it means for her as well, because now she didn't race in the 800 meters at the ASA Senior Champs, and you need that to be considered for the World Champs, you know. So it's all up in the air. And because of this decision by the Court of Arbitration for Sport, because of these regulations by the IAAF, it's just thrown someone's career down the drain.
100%. We thank you for your insights. That's, of course, Hlonim Timkulu. She's breaking down what this means, this ruling, the IAAF ruling, means for Caster in terms of her competing in women's events that currently go from the 400 meters up until the mile.